Hi, my name is Janeta Ilievska. Today, I'm going to speak about business continuity, a topic which became very popular during this period of COVID-19 crisis. So with this webinar, I will go through the following topics. What is a business continuity? Definition and simple popular speaking. What is the philosophy behind the BC? It's a plastic interpretation of BC to get a picture through the concept of the company, business, product, and service delivery, and assets. Then I'll present the BCM as a systematic approach to get a BC plan that works. We go through the stages for development and maintaining the BC plan, which includes establish a policy, conduct risk assessment, and building business impact analysis, so that you get insight what are the actual threats to the company and how quick to return to normal mode of operations. Then we'll touch the strategy part. And finally, what actually the BC plan is as an ultimate useful and visible element of BC. As well, I will mention and explain the testing and continuous improvement of the BC plan. And finally, briefly, we give an overview what disaster recovery means as a subset of the BC. At the end, we'll summarize why business continuity is crucial for the companies. After the presentation, we'll follow a question and answer session. So let's start with what is a business continuity? By definition, a business continuity or short BC is the capability of an organization to continue the delivery of products and services within acceptable timeframes at predefined capacity and during a disruption. Or simply say, if a disaster happens and core processes are affected, proceed doing business according Plan B until normal mode is established again. Since we are talking for BC, let's first see what a business as usual means today. Companies exist to deliver products and services according to the needs of the customers. Quality of the services and on-time delivery are key expectations by the customers. Companies need to operate according to many laws and regulations. Regulators conduct periodic inspections on the companies for their compliance with the laws. And compliance means that the companies respect the rules of the game, which are prescribed by the government. Every company has employees who are responsible for the delivery of products and services, and the management takes care that employees are satisfied with the conditions in which they work, because it affects the quality of products and services. But providing services requires many other assets than employees. So companies use building, infrastructure, energy, technology, internet, information suppliers. All those elements participate in the value delivered to the customers. And if everything is fine, customers, employees, regulators are satisfied, the companies will be successful and their business will be able to grow, to provide new services and products, opening new job positions, and so spread to new markets. This was a happy scenario. However, bad things can happen since the companies do not operate in a glass bell. So what bad happened in real life and so in the business? Natural disasters, pandemics, fire, prolonged power outage, losing key employees, cyber attacks, problems with suppliers. And there are many other threats that would cause incidents. The results of the incidents might be people are unavailable. There is no one to do the job today. There is no electricity, problems with the infrastructure, system is down, virus in laptop, slow or no internet connection, or key information is missing, or supplier is not responsive, or building or server room is damaged. Any combination is possible. And if any of the key assets is damaged or unavailable, this will cause break in the value delivery chain. There are many examples in the everyday operations. Some of them are not big issues. For some of them, they're routine procedures for dealing with, and the interruption in the operation is insignificant. But large-scale incidents can occur when it is not possible to react immediately, or simply you don't know how to react in a timely manner. And in that case, the chances of a longer interruption in the operations are higher. Due to major incidents, delivery of the service may be delayed or with bad quality. This would lead to customer dissatisfaction. So in extreme cases, the consequences can be catastrophic, be it a bad reputation, losing important customers, losing market position, and finally, it could lead to bankruptcy. So, how to avoid the catastrophe in case of major incidents? How to respond in such scenarios? You need to think beforehand for the worst scenarios and be prepared to respond quickly with a minimum disruption in the vital processes and operations, because you need always to keep in mind that clients expect on-time delivery with quality as agreed. There are SLAs, and you will pay penalties if the SLAs are not satisfied. And the solution is to have a well-thought strategy and an effective plan to respond quickly and emerge resiliently with lower stress and higher confidence. And during the recovery, you need to do the things on alternative way, which means you can have people on pool to cover the employee that is absent. Probably if assessed, you can have a generator in order to mitigate prolonged power outages. Have a backup ISP provider. Have a backup of data and systems. Have an alternative supplier. Which options will be used depends on the analysis, estimates, decisions, and strategies made beforehand. But how to get a busy plan that works? I'm frequently using the term busy plan, but what does that practically mean? At all, what is a plan? It is typically any diagram or listed steps with details of timing and resources used to achieve some objectives. And what does it mean to have a plan? It means that you know what, when, and how to do something, which resources to use, because when major incidents happen, there is no time to think what to do. But if you have a concise busy plan, you're in a good way to deal with the hazard. What is important for the busy plan? Busy plan is documented procedures and guides that can help you to quickly respond and recover from a disruptive incident. You might have a different plan for different kinds of incident with specific responsibilities, organization of actions, timeframes, tools that will be used, because the procedures for response in case of power outage are not the same in case of fire or with the procedures when the service is down. The other thing that is important is that busy plan is company specific. You cannot just copy paste from somewhere else. Your plan needs to be strictly aligned with your business, to the risks and threat on your business, and to be very well designed to be able to react quickly with minimum negative consequences. So there is a lot of work to be done before we get a plan that works. It is a complex job and it is not one-day effort. So what is the best approach to be applied to get a workable busy plan? It needs to be done in a coordinated way, and the best way is to have a systematic approach. BCM stands for Business Continuity Management, and there are many different standards and frameworks for implementing the business continuity management. One of them is ISO 22301, but also majority of the BCM requirements are part of ISO 27001, which stands for Information Security, ISO 20000, which stands for Service Management. And what does this approach consider? With this approach, there are several phases. First phase is establishing a BC policy, because without the policy and support by top management, BC cannot be implemented. The other phase is the more complex phase and includes risk assessment, which means identify what can attack the delivery of the products and services. This helps to find which kind of incidents and risks could happen to the company and how likely they will happen, such as natural disasters, earthquake, flood, fire, malicious causes such as cyber attack, virus, hackers. And the risks are closely related with the availability of resources, people, technology, facilities, equipment, third parties. And if one critical resource is missing, then the delivery will be disrupted. Another part of the analysis phase is business impact analysis, which means identify what needs to be protected, identify the critical products or services, key functions that need to be protected. In this phase, you will determine what resources are needed and how quickly you need to recover. I will explain the details, but in this phase are calculated the MTD, which stands for the maximum tolerable downtime, the RTO, which stands for resource recovery time objectives, and the RPO recovery point objectives. Once the analysis is finished, the next phase is developing a strategy. A strategy is a game plan for how to recover from disruption and continue the delivery. Within the strategy phase, you recap everything that you have got from the analysis and decide which solutions you will prepare so the company is ready for the disruptions, such as using of alternative site or facility when the facility is unavailable, or decision for remote work, manual work, backups, alternative suppliers. All those solutions you need to prepare before any problems happen. Or in other words, within a strategy, you define how you will get these resources available when you need them. Because you cannot start looking for second ISP operator at the moment when your primary ISP crashes. Once the strategy is completed, the next is shaping your BC plan. Align it with the recovery strategy and document step by step who, when, and how. So if you have already support by top management, you know risks and needed resources, when and how quickly you need to recover, what arrangements to make beforehand, you can start documenting the BC plan. Strategy influences a lot how the BC plan will be written. For example, in case of building unavailable, if strategy says to have secondary location, then it is one BC plan. But if strategy says work from home, then this will be another BC plan. Test the plan, evaluate, find gaps, make improvements. This is continual process when you need to do after the BC plan is finished over and over. Since nothing is perfect, and so the plans, that is why everything that is specified in the plan needs to be verified. With the exercises, you can check and assure if the plan works as expected or not, if it is well aligned with the strategy, and any deviation shall be addressed for improvement. And it is a cycle that goes over and over. Those were the short description of the process. So let's move to the detailed explanation of each step of the process. First is the BC policy. First of all, preparing the company to respond with resilience in case of major disruption requires commitment by the top management, because without the policy and support by top management, BC cannot be implemented. So basically, what the policy is. It is a high-level statement that is approved by top management. So it is first commitment by the top management that BC is important for the company. Secondly, it defines the responsibilities for implementing business continuity, sets objectives and expectations of BC continuity. And finally, it is support by the top management to structures and people that implement business continuity. Before I go to deep explanation of the analysis phase, let me give a short overview of 4 important concepts. Risk, effect of uncertainty on objectives, or simply, you hope that it would not happen, but be prepared if it happens. Examples: risk of stolen laptop, risk of loot, a risk of missing password list, a risk of building unusable. What is important is that risks are calculation of the probability and the impact. They can be managed if we play with the probability to happen and or the impact. Threats. Threat is a potential cause of an unwanted incident which may result in a harm to a system or an organization, or simply, threat is something that presents an imminent danger or harm. Threats are natural disasters, pandemics, fire, prolonged power outage, losing employees, cyber attack, viruses, problems with suppliers, travel accidents. What is important for the threats is that they are always present, but the risk can be reduced. Incidents, events that can be or could lead to a disruption, loss, emergency, or crisis. Or simply, the incident is an event that is either unpleasant or unusual. For example, video camera does not work, broken entrance door, lost access card, virus, computer stolen, personal, data misused, the selling leaks, events that can be or could lead to a disruption, loss, or emergency. And what is important in relations with BC is that not all incidents trigger BCP activation, but only major might activate BCP activation. Now let's move with the risk assessment. Explanation of the first phase of the analysis. Generally speaking, with BCP, we want to ensure that our critical business functions will continue during the disaster. And in order to get effective BCP, we need to go through deep diving for what bad can happen and what are the critical business functions, so that we are prepared to respond in a safe and timely manner. The first part of this diving can be achieved with risk assessment, and the second one with business impact analysis. And results of both phases are then passed to the process for preparing the BCP. So let's start with risk assessment. Risk assessment is a heavy analytical process which expected outcome are several answers. First, which kind of incidents and risks could happen to the company and how likely they will happen? Earthquake, flood, cyber attacks. And while exercising this, we came out with answers such as almost certain, or likely, or possibly, or unlikely, or rare. Next, we analyze what damage could be if they happen, and the answers could be severe, major or moderate, minor, not significant. And by doing this, we are actually calculating the value of the risk and can find out what might be the major risks which need immediate attention. And so which of them are of top priority. And if some risk is put on the priority list, then the next natural step is to think how to reduce the damage if that risk happens. So this is the way to think. And since it is an iterative and incremental process that is repeated periodically, and there might be many people involved, it is recommended the company to have a methodology to get a consistent approach, regardless when and by whom this process is conducted. And one such methodology, which is used very often, especially in companies with implemented ISO 27001, is the asset-based risk assessment methodology. So why those companies choose this methodology? Well, those risks are closely related to the availability and normal operability of key resources, such as people, technology, facilities, equipment, and third parties. And if one critical resource is missing, then the value chain will be disrupted. So why not relating assessment of the risks with the key assets? So here is in short what the methodology means, and in the next screen I will show you some examples. First, you need to identify your key assets, the threats are relevant for those assets, and the vulnerabilities of those assets against the threats. In this process, it is expected to come with many combinations of those variables. Then for each combination, you analyze the likelihood of the threat's occurrence and the impact of the threats to assets. Finally, you evaluate the risk and decide how this risk can be reduced. And what is most important, each risk you assign to a risk owner. And in this screen, here you can see a matrix which defines the relationship between likelihood and impact values, and with same scales for measuring. They are chosen low, medium, high. And the method for calculating the value of the risk is the sum of the likelihood and impact. This matrix is defined in the methodology so that whenever anyone who could assess the risks applies the same measures and methods for calculations. The choice for scales and the methods for calculations could be sum or product or any other functions, and everything is up to the company. And on the table on the right, you can see an example with results of asset-based risk assessment, where you can see listed assets, vulnerability, threats, likelihood, impact, and risk value. And then follow the columns risk handling, which means what methods to apply to manage the risk, the priority, which means how quick they need to be addressed, and finally, what actions shall be taken to reduce the risk. The method of handling is also prescribed within the methodology, and the company decides how to manage whether the risk is low, medium, or high, and possible options are accept the risk, which means nothing to be done, avoid, meaning stop doing the activities that lead to such risks. For example, if use of private mobile devices is a serious threat for security breach, then prohibit employees to use private devices to view email. The next option for risk handling is transfer or share risk. Example, if the company doesn't have the capacity to handle the risk, it can transfer or share with another company with more expertise. And finally, the option for risk handling is the mitigate, which means reduce the risk with action plans. And The main takeaway of this analysis is that the company gets an overview of which kind of major incidents and risks could happen, how likely they will happen, and that helps the company to plan next actions, particularly for the risk with top priority. Business impact analysis. The purpose of the second part of the deep diving phase, named as business impact analysis, is multifold and should give several answers. First, what are the key functions in the company? Key functions means activities, processes, systems, departments, and the one that are responsible for the delivery of the services and products. And they are the most important to take care of when major incidents happen. Also, you need to know who the owners of the key functions are, as well the dependencies between them. For example, in many companies today, there is a high dependence on IT departments. Next, once identified the key functions, the next thing is to identify the maximum time for which the break of these functions can be tolerated. And this is the maximum tolerable downtime. For some businesses and for particular key functions, this tolerable downtime might vary in minutes up to several hours, and for others, in days and even weeks. Also, taking account when calculating the maximum tolerable downtime is that multiple factors can influence the definition of FTD. For example, it is not only important how the customer will react if delivery is delayed, but it's also important how many penalties the company will have to pay for unsatisfied SLAs. Also important is what would be the financial cost or the operating cost due to the disruption of the other dependent functions. And a significant factor could be the loss of the reputation. After MTD is decided, the next to define is RTO, recovery time objective of the resources, and even all other functions the concerned critical functions depends on. For example, if for a critical function, MTD is 24 hours, and if it depends on an IT system, and then if the system is down, then the time for which we would like the system to recover should be less of 24 hours. Achieving RTO will directly depend on how quickly we can restore the system, and how RTO will be satisfied concerns the strategy phase. During the system restore period, the critical functions are executed in an alternative way. For example, if reporting system is down, then alternative way could be using Excel files, Google Docs, and again, the alternative ways of doing stuff are concerned of the strategy phase. Once we have MTD and RTO, we should specify the RPO, which means how much of the data calculated in time is affordable to be lost. This is mostly needed when a critical function is IT dependent. So if the IT system has crashed and it needs to be restored, then the data will be retrieved from a backup. But what about the data between the moment of the least backup and the moment of crash? They will be lost. So it is important to define what is the affordable data loss for the business spread in time. And this will influence the backup policy, which means the frequency of backups, and the strategy cares for it again. Finally, once all dimensions are identified, a report is prepared with all those stuff. In this screen, there are some tables. What mean any of the tables? Let's see what we are going with the analysis. In this analysis, you will collect a lot of data for each critical function and all critical resources. Then you will need to coordinate back and forth with all owners to harmonize the values, since there are many dependencies. And finally, you will get a report that needs to be approved by the owners. And same as for the risk assessment, this is an iterative and incremental process, and it is nice to have a methodology with templates to keep consistency over the time. So in the left table on top is a sample of how to evaluate qualitatively the impact of disruptions for one critical function for several time ranges, starting from 4 hours to 1 week. And the scale used is from 1 to 4. And if the business decided that 4 stands for critical, then this time range is a candidate for MTD. In our case, MTD is 4 hours. The same way, RPO can be defined for the systems, and you can see the table left bottom. And in the table on the right is a sample report of all critical functions, the resources required, and the values for MTD, RTO, and RPO. This report is used then in the strategies and preparation of the plans. We are finished with analysis, and the next step is strategy. What is a strategy? Strategy is a game plan for how to recover from disruption and continue delivery. Recap everything provided from analysis and think which solution you will prepare so the company is ready for disruptions. Examples for such solutions are: when loss of facility, you can choose to use alternative site or work from home. In case of loss of systems, you can choose manual work or using alternative applications. Loss of suppliers, you can choose to use alternative supplier or maybe insourcing activities. Loss of people, have a backup resources, or have a cross-functional employees, or maybe third-party contractors. Loss of internet connection. Usually it is alternative ISP provider. Loss of data. Backup, nothing else. So you need to prepare all these solutions before any problems happen. So define how you will get these resources available when you need them. Because preparing backup employee might last for years, or finding an alternative supplier might last for months. So this needs to be arranged in time, or if there is no backup for some systems and BIA says that data shall be restored from backup, then you need to start doing the backup. BC plan. Once you have all inputs on the table, starting from policy, then analysis and strategy, you can proceed with preparation of the BC plan. General notes when preparing the plan. You can start writing the plan once you know which resources should be available, when and how quickly you need to recover MTD and RTO. BC plan is company specific and keeps the business running, so no copy paste. Take in mind that BC plan is used in stressful circumstances, so take care to be concise, simple, and easy to follow. You will result with different plan per any major incident. There might be many different plans. Business continuity plan needs to be aligned with the strategy. And based on the determined strategy, you focus on the people that should be involved, and the procedures that should be activated to return to normal following an incident. Also more important is the activation. Activation of the BC is expensive, so you need to think twice before you activate. Activate when major incident happened, which have impact to the vital core business functions and systems the core functions depends on. So those are some tips and important instructions when preparing the BC continuity plan. And the content should be aligned. It is recommended to have one document per incident, and in addition, as appendix, you can add the results from the business impact analysis, key contacts, results of the risk assessment for the major incidents, not the all analysis, because there could be thousands of records. Then you add the values for the maximum tolerable downtime, the RTO and the RPO. In the BC plan, include documented simple procedures for what to do when major incident happens. There shall be guides, resources needed, locations, contacts, details per major incident. And finally, what is most important for the BC plan is that BC plan must be maintained, since all these things from above are dynamic. Everything outlined in the plan needs to be tested. There would be particular plans for different disruption scenarios. With the testing, you find out potential gaps. Examples of potential gaps could be missing steps in the procedures, no guides for certain activities, gaps in the communication tree. Procedures are not clear enough. People are not prepared for stressful situations. RTO or RPO cannot be satisfied. Key contacts missing in the contact list. No hard copy of the BC plan. Or restore from data backup does not work. Or installation procedure not applicable for latest software version. And with an exercise, it can be verified and assured that the plan works as expected, and any gap or deviations must be evaluated and corrected. This way, actually, you achieve continual improvement. At the end, since it's covered all phases of the business continuity, let's see some general considerations for disaster recovery. Disaster recovery is concerned with IT, while BC with business operations. If key business operations are strongly dependent on IT and disaster recovery is subset of BC, the most important for disaster recovery is the recovery speed in case of downtime. Disaster recovery plan implementation goes through the same process steps as BCP. So inputs for DRP are outputs for ERA and BIA. Strategies might not be activated after major incident if the incident is not IT related. DRP might be mixed with BCP, and it's up to the company. What is the DRP content? Recovery procedures with detailed steps as a checklist, how to recover the system, dependency between systems, priority list with systems, RPO and RTO per system, communications, who will communicate what when disaster happened, contacts, key locations. And finally, for the disaster recovery plan is testing as a crucial. So what shall be tested? Critical system for business impact analysis. When? At least annually or after new system is implemented, or when major changes in existing system. Why? Testing is why first to know how restore can be done, to measure how long it takes, or to ensure that you can recover the system when it gets down. And to summarize, business disruption might happen, so what to do? The solution is to have your own business continuity plan that works. And what are the benefits? It is safely and healthily to respond resiliently in case of disruptions. You want to protect the employees, families, clients, partners, all stakeholders of your business. You want to save your property. You want to avoid to pay a lot of money for penalties due to unfulfilled SLAs. You want to avoid to pay fines for unfulfilled regulatory requirements. You want to achieve the goals for success in the long run. And you don't want your hard work in building a successful business to fail overnight. But also, business continuity is required by the customers. COVID-19 pandemic confirmed that. It's also required by the regulators in some industries. So finally, you're going to run your business with confidence. And we can conclude that actually business continuity is an investment for everything already discussed. But some companies decide to pay the damages instead of implementing DC because they play on cards, oh, very unlikely to happen to me. But COVID-19 happened and made global impact to the economy, not only to companies, but states. The whole world has experienced the crisis. And those who are somewhat prepared to face COVID-19, had some plan B, are going through the crisis smoothly, and the rest are already facing the negative consequences. COVID-19 has taught the world a great lesson. I hope the world has learned this lesson, and the price foreseen is too high, much higher than the investment for this. So this is all about BC continuity, and now we can proceed with the questions and answers session. I believe and I hope you enjoyed the webinar. Currently, I can not see any question. Probably the subject is not such ordinary. Okay. There is a question. One is, how is Interworks handling COVID-19 with the business continuity plan? How is Interworks business continuity plan? Okay. Interworks has business continuity plan implemented as part of the ISO 27001 security, information security, and plan includes situations when the facility is unavailable. This is part of the strategy, what the employees, how we are going to do, what we are going to do if the facility is not available and the solution is work from home. So partly with COVID-19, we have such situation, work from home, then not work from home, but there are many other steps covered during the preparation phase for COVID-19. Many communications, whether with the employees and with the clients, because communications are very important, having in mind the nature of the situation. So there are many, let's say, actions taken by the management, by the people responsible for the practices. I will say, first of all, for the system administrator part, when we are prepared the network and VPN access to be with the capacity that will handle work from home. So the program included all communications, but CrossFit programs, because program with positive thoughts every day, because in this type of crisis, the mental health was very important for the employees. No such the physical health, but the mental health. So I would say that work from home was the solution, supported with many activities and programs. Management meetings, more frequent management meetings with the employees, where employees could ask everything that were interested for the situations, how Interworks and how the company is handling, how is the situation and with the clients and the projects. I think that this was the kind of plan that was immediately prepared just before the COVID-19. But work from home was already part of our business continuity plan as part of the implemented ISO standard. Another question. How you will evaluate from the perspective of BC Interworks can found in those situations? I believe I've already discussed that. I think that we were in a good shape from the beginning, because before the curve was announced by the government, we have already a plan that we are going to work from home. But I would say that also, even though that some projects are put on hold, but I think that the most of them are still in progress, and the business is goes as usual, with some exceptions. I found that Interworks was prepared, or adjusted the work, adjusted the business very quickly to the new situation. It is my opinion. Are there any questions? I cannot see any further questions. So if anyone wants to ask, could send or post the questions, or we'll wait until 30 seconds. Okay, there are no further questions. So thank you all for the time. Thank you for your attention. I believe you enjoyed the webinar. Bye.